Let's maul in the Central Committee. Let's cringe in the Central Committee. Let's bog in the Central Committee right now.
We know that Republicans are now racist against black dogs, apparently, and tried to do a segment about how Joe Biden's dog was not presidential enough. Meanwhile, Ted Cruz abandons millions of freezing Texans and his poodle Snowflake. After jaunting out to Cancun with his family Wednesday night, Senator Ted Cruz explained that he was merely escorting his girls on a vacation trip with their friends. In an apparent bid for sympathy, he noted, like millions of other Texans, our family lost heat and water. But then I heard barking, and it was a small white dog looking at the bottom right pane of glass in the Senator's front door. Had Cruz left his dog behind? As we approached to knock, a man stepped out of Suburban, parked in Cruz's driveway. Is this Senator Cruz's house? He asked. He said it was, that Cruz wasn't home, and identified himself as a security guard. When I asked who was taking care of the dog, the guard volunteered that he was. Reassured of the dog's well-being, I returned to my car. Before leaving, though, I took a photo of the house from my car window, making sure not to include the house's address. Just drove by Ted Cruz's house in Houston. His lights are off, but a neighbor told me the block got its power back last night. Also, Ted Cruz appears to have left behind the family poodle. How is this not a thing? Hey, they named their dog Snowflake and abandoned their dog in the middle of a snowstorm. Also, look, no snow on the ground at all. Texas was defeated by a winter storm that doesn't exist. Whoever wrote this simulation, I can't believe, like, whoever wrote this simulation they're slipping, chat. They're absolutely slipping. The simulation, it's slipping. I can't believe it's real. I can't believe it's like, what is happening? What the fuck is happening? Mike, I just got my power back in 4 days. I lost everything in my apartment because pipes bursted. I'm struggling bad. Please help. Derek, I'm so sorry to hear that, buddy. I don't know what to do. I hope you're okay. Was the snowstorm a conspiracy all along? I mean, like, the in all seriousness, chat, the scale of the humanitarian crisis in Texas is really disheartening. And it was all due to conservative politics. Now, this tells you everything you need to know about Ted Cruz. His idea of what politics is triggering the libs. Going on media and triggering the libs. And when you listen to his reason for coming back, his reason for coming back was how it was perceived. He's not even sorry. Not as a gifter. Thanks for gifting 3 months to Derek. I appreciate that, bud. Ted Cruz apologized.
Senator Ted Cruz apologizing for leaving frozen Texas behind with his family to visit a luxury resort in sunny, warm Mexico. What was obvious to nearly everyone is now obvious to him. Dan is live with the story.
What? No, the gnomes are getting better. The gnomes are getting better. Was this one used on Hassan? Was this one used by Hassan? God like. God like.
His ill-timed vacation while millions of his constituents were suffering with no power, heat, or running water. Cruz says he felt guilty almost immediately after boarding his flight Wednesday and decided to return the next day to help solve the crisis in Texas. He told Fox's Sean Hannity last night that 2 days prior to the trip, the power had gone out at his Houston home where he lives with his family.
And after a couple of days after the girls...
This is a Mike from PA legendary gnoming, and I fucking demand that you use this on anyone covering this story.
Really cold, it being in the teens and the 20s outside. Our girls said, look, school's been canceled for the week. Can we take a trip and go somewhere warm? And Heidi and I, as parents, we said, okay, sure.
He shouldn't be leaving the state on a vacation when the rest of us around here freeze. I just got power on after 36 hours. I'm over it. We need some help.
The backlash against Cruz was swift. There were protesters outside his home as well as some at the airport when he returned, and he's taking plenty of heat on social media. On Twitter, he's being referred to as Flying Ted and Cancun Cruz and even Marie Antoinette with
Cancun Cruz! He's never getting over this. Ever. It's over. Cancun Cruz. It's over. That's a wrap on his fucking political career. That's a wrap. Cancun Cruz. He's toast. He's done. He's done. Also, the Marie Antoinette. Let them eat snow. Oh, my Lord in heaven. Also, this is... My community is amazing. I love you. You actually got a really good news clip, and you put a gnoming in it and owned me. And then the clip was good. This is a perfect encapsulation of this community. The clip is really good, and I was gnomed in such a way that any streamer would get owned by it. I am proud of this community. I am proud of this community. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.
Let Them Eat Cake replaced by Let Them Eat Snow. The Texas Democratic Party is calling for Cruz to resign or be expelled from the Senate. Cruz does have some time for voters to forget about his trip to Mexico. He's not up for re-election until 2024. No word yet whether he plans to once again seek the presidency. Reporting live, Dan Godwin, back to Tim.
Incredible video. I have never been more proud. I've never been more proud of our community. Cruz looks like such a Canadian. I speak from personal experience. Oh God, he absolutely does. And here's the thing that's even funnier about this. It gets even worse. Is that while Ted Cruz... Okay. Ted Cruz went on Sean Hannity. Let's watch the Sean Hannity appearance. It is so funny. Are you ready? Oh, God. Okay, this is 10 minutes of Michael Maulding. Yes, I saw it was Noam Chomsky. Good job. It was Noam Chomsky. We got Noam Chomsky. Good job. I saw the face. I saw it. Good job. There were so many layers.
Tonight is facing the ire of the mob, the media, for traveling to Cancun, Mexico with his daughters to drop
the ire of the mob and the media. Is he wearing a CIA pin? What is this pin? He is. He fucking is. Actually wearing a CIA. This is the pin that Sean Hannity's wearing. I think. Some sleuths. Am I right or am I right? Looks like a CIA, actual CIA pin.
Off and come home as Texas is still addressing the fallout and damage from severe weather. Now, in response, Senator Cruz tonight did say, in retrospect, he might have made a mistake, adding in a statement, in part, wanting to be a good dad. I flew down with them last night, and I'm flying right back.
Okay. This is a conservative. I want you to understand the type of man Ted Cruz is. Not all masculinity is toxic, by the way. It's masculine and non-toxic to be an honorable person. That's our idealized version of not to say feminine people are not honorable, but you can be masculine and non-toxic. A masculine man defends his family. He doesn't dominate his family. He doesn't dictate to his family, but he defends his family. He's honorable. Ted Cruz is throwing his preteen daughters under the bus in front of the whole country to protect his own image. I don't know if you've ever interacted with a preteen, but the idea of traveling is usually not what they're into. They want to play with their friends. They want to be on the computer. They don't want to be sitting on a plane for hours to go on vacation. Now, maybe they'll have fun on vacation, but it's typically the parents, of course, that are the ones that do this. He is a liar, and he's such a pathetic fucking loser in his lies that it's easily disproven by anybody who's ever interacted with a child. But he so utterly lacks masculinity that he throws his daughters in front of the bus to save himself. Could you think of a more depraved and pathetic thing to do than that?
This afternoon, and he did. My staff and I are in constant communication with state, local leaders to get to the bottom of what happened in Texas. Joining us now to talk about...
You can't be in constant communication when you're in the Ritz-Carlton in fucking... He went to the Ritz-Carlton in Cancun. And the story gets even better. We're going to watch this whole thing because this is what conservatives are. And they can't walk away from it. Sean Hannity gave 10 minutes to let Ted Cruz attack his own daughters and blame them.
About it is Texas Senator Ted Cruz. I have a piece of this story that nobody knows, that you know to be true, and Governor Abbott knows to be true. And that is, I got contact very early in the week from the official meteorologist of my radio show, Joe Bastardi, frequent guest on this program at weatherbell.com. And he sent a note to both of you, to you and Governor Abbott. In that note, he said this is going to be far worse than...
Loving the show, Mike DSAL.
Our passion, thank you for the tier 1. So what you're saying, Sean, is that people saw this coming and Texas did nothing to prepare. So you're saying they're even more incompetent, and you know they're even more incompetent because you personally informed them.
And I think others are predicting. You got in touch with them. The governor got in touch with them. You took it seriously. And you worked hand in hand with the governor in the lead up to this,
Thanks to tier 3.
knowing this was all a big possibility. And this is days before that happened, and you were fully and completely engaged. And I know that from my own reporting and my own conversations with you and Governor Abbott and with Joe Bastardi.
So they were aware of it and they did nothing, and it was a disaster. What? Taking it seriously while we're vacationing in a luxury resort in a different country.
Now, you went and you took your daughters to Cancun and you came back. I think you can be a father.
He came back after he got caught. He got caught. It's not like the plan was for him to stay for a week, you lying piece of shit. Look at this propagandist. Sean Hannity is a propagandist liar. This is also something that wouldn't happen on the left. What's happening right here would not happen on the left. He's lying about what happened. Ted Cruz got caught. And then he came back. It was, by the way, is Heidi not capable of taking her 2 children on a plane? Does she need Ted? Like, what the fuck is he talking about? I know of 10 and 12-year-olds that have flown alone. Unaccompanied minors fly in planes all the time. There's even programs in some airlines for you to do that, where you give the child over to the custody of the airline and they have a helper at every step of the way. In what way does Ted Cruz need to take his wife to take 2 well-behaved little girls to Cancun? This is a pathetic lie.
And be the senator of Texas all at the same time and make a round trip, quick drop-off trip.
That's not what it was. He was going on a week vacation and he got caught, Sean. And do you know how we know this, chat? Do you know how we know this? Ted Cruz is so hated. He's so hated. Family texts detail his political blunder. Texas senator faced fierce blowback for fleeing his state as disaster unfolded. Text messages sent by his wife revealed a hastily planned trip away from their freezing family home. His neighbors and friends, when Ted Cruz tried to be like, oh no, I was just accompanying my children, released the texts proving that he was a liar. Text photos of Mr. Cruz and his wife Hannity boarding the flight ricocheted quickly across social media and the left both political allies and rivals aghast at his tropical trip as disaster unfolded at home. The blowback only intensified after Mr. Cruz, a Republican, released a statement saying he'd flown to Mexico to be a good dad and accompany his daughters and their friends. He noted he was flying back Thursday afternoon, though he did not disclose how long he had originally intended to stay. Text messages sent from Miss Cruz to friends and Houston neighbors on Wednesday revealed a hastily planned trip. Their house was freezing, as Miss Cruz put it, and she proposed a getaway until Sunday. Miss Cruz invited others to join them at the Ritz-Carlton in Cancun, where they had stayed many times. Noting the room price this week, $309 per night, and it's good security. Text messages were provided to the New York Times and confirmed by a second person on the thread who declined to be identified because of the private nature of the text. What's happening in Texas is unacceptable, Mr. Cruz told a television crew at the Cancun airport. He was wearing a Texas state flag mask and a short-sleeved polo shirt tucked into his jeans. The temperature in Cancun was above 80 degrees Fahrenheit on Thursday and 30s in Houston. And when he tried to explain the vacation without regrets and left the impression that it might have always been a one-day trip for him, speaking to reporters at home, he conceded that the trip was obviously a mistake and said he was having second thoughts as soon as he boarded the plane to Mexico. Intend on a few days of remote work in the sun. He's lying, chat. So here you go. Ted Cruz still letting Sean Hannity spread this lie. Let's see if he corrects it.
I'm home.
Well, Sean, that's right. And starting with what you opened with, you connected me with Joe early on before these storms actually even hit the state of Texas. And I got to say, you called me and told me Joe was very impressive. He knew his stuff. And I called him that evening and spent significant time on the phone with him talking through what he saw coming. And
let me see your phone records. I don't believe you, Ted. I don't believe you, Ted. I think you're a liar. Show me the phone records.
Not one, but two major winter storms, the combination of which he believed would have an impact on Texas that would exceed anything we've seen in this state since 1899. And I thought it was a very impressive, a very serious. He sent me charts and data on what was coming. And you reached out and I reached out to Governor Abbott and said, listen, this guy knows his stuff. And
still lying to his audience.
Help connect them. And, you know, at the same time, Governor Abbott had already declared an emergency in all 254 counties all across Texas. And so I joined with John Cornyn in urging Joe Biden to declare a federal disaster to mirror the governor's request, which President Biden, to his credit, did. And so that was early on, right before these storms came. We knew they were serious. This week has been hell for the state of Texas. It has been two storms on top of each other.
People saw him change his flight home. By the way, he didn't correct it. He didn't correct. So he let Sean Hannity spin a narrative in the beginning of his program that he was just doing a day trip to escort his poor daughters. And he didn't correct it. He let him lie to his audience. That makes him a fucking liar by omission. He should have said, actually, Sean, I did plan on working remotely from Cancun originally, but I regretted it immediately once I saw people posting it on social media.
4 million Texans lost power, no lights, many with no water. It has been frustrating. I'll tell you, Sean, a lot of Texans are mad or pissed off. How could it be that Texas, the energy capital of the world, can't turn our lights on and can't heat our homes? A lot of Texans are frustrated. This shouldn't have happened. I'll tell you, Heidi,
it's called deregulation. It's called 30 years of right-wing governance. Complete Republican control since 1994. That's how. You think the oil and gas being produced by Texas taken from Texas land is being used for Texans. It's going into the private bank accounts of the rich who don't even live there. ERCOT, the independent Texas power grid, is headed by someone who lives in Michigan. That's what capitalism. Capitalists don't have a home. Capitalism doesn't care about where you are or who you are. It's about the money. And Ted Cruz is one of those people, and his wife, who works at Goldman Sachs, are one of those people that have worked their careers on facilitating capitalists, not Texans. He wears that Texas flag as a joke. At best, you could say that he's the head of the capitalist franchise in Texas. But he would have no problem moving. He doesn't care about you. He's from Canada! It is funny that the guy originally from Canada is leaving Texas because it got too cold. That is pretty funny. That is a little bit funny. And ironic. He's about as Texas, and Texan as Tim Hortons. About as Texan as a Tim Hortons donut. His blood thinned.
We lost power for 2 days. Our house was dark. We had no heat. Actually, the fireplace behind me, we were all huddled around the fireplace because it was the only heat in the house. And after a couple of days after the girls...
So you sat on your ass like a fucking loser, huddling around a fireplace. What were other people doing? What were other people doing? While this lazy, stupid son of a bitch was huddled in his house, you know what other people were doing, chat? What were other people doing? I'll tell you. I'll tell you what other people were doing once I can find the tab. AOC raises more than $2 million for relief efforts in Texas as of Friday before traveling to Houston to help with the recovery effort. The New York lawmaker volunteered at a Houston food bank Saturday to help with the relief efforts. Now, Ted Cruz flew back to do Sean Hannity's show. AOC raised $2 million from her followers, flew to Texas to help with relief efforts. That's a difference in leadership. And where credit is due. Credit where credit is due. Beto O'Rourke went and started phone banking and sending volunteers to seniors that were stranded without food and without heat who were near death. He went out there and made hundreds of thousands of phone calls, checking in on people to see if they had what they needed to survive. That's the difference between somebody who cares and somebody who doesn't.
Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Friday addressed a viral video in which a distressed...
We're gonna talk about that story later, don't you worry. AOC raised $3.2 million for relief efforts Texas as of Friday night before visiting Houston to help in the recovery effort. I think this shows that New York stands with you, but the whole country stands with you. Ocasio-Cortez says at a press conference outside a food bank.
A job requirement for any job serving the people. Thanks for the stream.
How do you determine that? Does anyone have this video? I thought I had the video, but I'm struggling today with actually, you take a day off and you become a terrible streamer. It's how it goes. That's just how it goes. Hold on, let me see if I can find this. Let me find the clip of AOC being the queen that she is. This is the donation link AOC shared. Hell yeah. Your contributions will be split evenly between Family Elder Care, the Houston Food Bank, North Texas Food Bank, Ending Community Homeless Coalition, the Bridge Homeless Recovery Central, Central Texas Food Bank, Feeding Texas, Corzan Ministries, and the Food Bank of the Rio Grande Valley. All right, I'm going to go ahead and click that. Everyone donate. Support AOC's relief efforts in Texas. By the way, look at this. Hell yeah.
Cortez from New York.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Representative Garcia. Thank you so much, Representative Jackson Lee, for welcoming us here to your district. You know, when disaster strikes, this is not just an issue for Texans. This is an issue for our entire country. And our whole country needs to come and rally together behind the needs of Texans all across the state. And, you know, as was mentioned earlier, disasters don't strike everyone equally. When you already have so many families in the state and across the country that are on the brink, that can't even afford an emergency to begin with, when you have a disaster like this, it can just set people back for years, not just for days. And so we have tragedy in the state. We need to rally around the state. We need to rally federal support for Texans and the state of Texas. And we need to make sure that we make short and long-term policy decisions so that this kind of devastation, preventable devastation, never happens again. And so I'm incredibly excited. You know, I think that as Representative Garcia mentioned, we hit $3.2 million in assistance for Texans across the state just last night. And I think this shows that New York stands with you, but the whole country stands with you. And as you mentioned, Representative Garcia, you know, we're in Texas, so we got to go big with that support. And so we hope to go even bigger. We hope to hit even more. Who knows? You know, if we can hit even 4, we'll see about that. But, you know, we really need to make sure that we're getting food and assistance to people across the state. As was mentioned, here at the Houston Food Bank, no questions are asked.
Obviously, both these reps are Democrats. These are local Texas reps that are standing with AOC because she's coming in and bringing a bunch of money to their local food bank. They can't ignore her when she comes and does their job. So AOC is doing the solid of saying, like, hey, I'm bringing millions of dollars to your local food bank. You got to show up. And she is getting their endorsement, basically. They're forced to stand next to her because she's actually doing the shit they can't do in their own backyard. And so whenever someone attacks AOC, now these two reps can't participate because AOC was just in their backyard doing the work. She just cucked them. By being a leader, by caring, by flexing her muscle, she just cucked these two into becoming her ally, whether or not they like it. This is how power works.
So you come up and you need help, you do not have
So even though maybe they don't like AOC, maybe they think she gets too much attention, but the fact is, she's in Houston with $3 million for her local food bank. And the local food bank, they're going to take that money. They got hundreds and thousands of hungry people to feed. They need all the money they can get. So they're going to take that money and they're going to say, AOC, thank you so much for all the work you've done. We have contacted all the local media about how much you've helped us. These reps are forced to go. And best of all, this is the best part, chat. We don't have to watch the full press conference. Now they're forced to get their hands dirty. Now AOC's forcing them to do work. AOC's forcing them to fill some boxes of food. AOC's like, oh, you want to be here? Now you got to help me load some boxes. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. And by the way, you know what? In their dark, soulless hearts, somewhere, a flicker is happening. A flicker of compassion. A flicker of, wait a minute. This is feeling good. I'm helping people. I'm more popular. The media is covering me. Maybe AOC isn't so bad. Maybe I can use this to increase my own celebrity and my own power and my own popularity. Maybe, and this also kind of, maybe somewhere, this kind of feels good. Maybe. So just by her example, she just started her second term. Just from her example, now these other shittier politicians are getting better. Because she's forcing them to get better. Sylvia Garcia, and this is Sheila Jackson Lee, in case you don't know who they are. I wonder how the right will spin this, or they'll just ignore it. They'll try their best to ignore it. Are they conservative? Sheila Jackson Lee, I mean, like, it depends on what you mean by that. Okay, Dennis, a bloody peasant, thank you. I saw that. I don't know that we're gonna play this. They will spin this as virtue signaling 100%. The reason why they can't do that is because she brought money. Meanwhile, Ted Cruz was in the Ritz-Carlton in Cancun. How you gonna spin that? She's feeding people. Here are her videos. Here's videos of her feeding people. What are you gonna do? Ted Cruz was in fucking huddling around his fireplace. What were you doing, Ted Cruz? AOC flew in your own backyard to feed people. What were you doing?
Really cold, it being in the teens and the 20s outside. Our girls asked, said, look, school's been canceled for the week. Can we take a trip and go somewhere warm? And Heidi and I, as parents, we said, okay, sure. And so last night I flew down with...
Yeah, the girls were like, Dad, can we go to the Ritz-Carlton in Cancun, Mexico? I heard they have excellent security there. It's only $300 a night. Yeah, that's what the little girls were... That's what the 12-year-olds and 10-year-olds were doing.
Them to the beach, and then I flew back this afternoon. I had initially planned to stay through the weekend and to work remotely there, but as I was heading down there,
he corrected it finally. He finally corrected the lies that the spin started off. I wonder if anybody will remember that who watches Sean Hannity.
I started to have second thoughts almost immediately, because the crisis here in Texas, you need to be here on the ground, and as much as you can do by phone and Zoom, it's not the same.
Well, okay, now they're trying the third spin attempt, because yesterday, Ben Shapiro, and by the way, chat, if you go over to my YouTube channel, yesterday we published, it's only an 8-minute video, Ben Shapiro defends Cancun Cruz's failure to act during the Texas freeze. The old spin was, well, there's nothing a senator can do. Now Ted Cruz is saying there is stuff you can do. Which is it, Ben? Which one of you is a liar? Ted or you? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, Spaghetti-O.
Same as being here. And so I returned this afternoon, and I'm here working to make sure to do everything we can to get the power turned on, but also fundamentally to ask the questions, why did this happen? Why was the Texas grid, which is regulated at the state level, it's operated at the state level, it's not a federal function, it's a state function.
Oh, why is it not regulated at the federal level, Ted? Why is that, Teddy boy? Why is that? Why don't you explain that?
But why was the grid not sufficiently prepared so that 4 million Texans lost heat and power? We need to answer that, and we need to make sure.
So we actually know why, Ted. Back in 2011, the feds prepared a report. Back in 2011, the feds that you hate, those damn regulators, tried to help Texas, who refuses to be a part of the national grid because they don't want no damn federal regulations. Look at this.
In the cold and dark, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas is taking the heat. That body that manages the state's power grid says they try to plan for extreme scenarios like this one.
But to do so, they rely on the power supply coming from Texas energy generators, like coal and gas producers, nuclear plants, and even wind turbines. As the storm blew in, thousands of megawatts of energy went offline in the cold.
KXAN investigator Avery Travis took a closer look at why and how a report from a decade ago tried to prevent it from ever happening.
Equipment locking up and taking down power plants. Ice grinding wind turbine blades to a halt, and entire natural gas infrastructure systems frozen.
The conditions described in this 2011 report after a big winter storm sound eerily familiar to what we're seeing and hearing about today.
The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and the North American Electric Reliability Corporation set industry standards at the federal level. They concluded Texas power generators were reactive instead of proactive in preparing for the weather, and the lack of regulation didn't help. They urged states in the Southwest to consider requiring generators to submit their winterization plans and enact legislation to make it happen.
The point is there's a lot of these plants that are throughout the world in colder regions, and the technologies are there. It's a matter of, do they get deployed in our region, given how seldom we have these events?
A decade later, University of Texas energy expert Dr. Tuttle explains it's still up to individual power generators, though, to prepare their equipment, and that comes at a cost.
Those are not mandatory. Those are recommended practices.
ERCOT does spot checks for a portion of the...
So in other words, in case you're not understanding, everywhere else in America, they're under those regulators. Now, if you're a conservative, the word regulation has been, you've been taught, oh my God, the free market. Why would a power generator want their power to fail? That doesn't make any sense. The free market would kick in and nobody would want a power generator who failed when you needed the electricity the most. The free market would obviously stop that, right? The free market would obviously stop that. What's the incentive for having no winterization plan? What's the incentive for your power to be shut down? Oh. As Texas deep freeze subsides, some households now face electricity bills as high as $10,000. Remember when I said a couple days ago that people, because there is a free market in energy in Texas, as opposed to a dirty regulated utility with big daddy government like there is in Pennsylvania. You know, actually, it's funny. My electricity bills are usually pretty much cheaper than the summer in the winter. Actually, that's kind of funny. I pay more for air conditioning than I do for heat. Oopsie. Now, you get to have that $10,000 electricity bill and it failed on you. As the Texas power grid collapsed under historic winter storm, Jose Del Rio of Haltom City in Dallas-Fort Worth saw the electricity bill on a vacant 2-bedroom home he's trying to sell slowly creep up over the past 2 weeks. Typically, the bill is around $1,225 to $150 a month, he said, but his account had already been charged $630 this month, and he still owes another $2,600. Exactly what I said a couple days ago. If worse comes to worse, I have the ability to put it on a credit card or figure something out, Del Rio said. There is no one living in that house. All the lights are off, but I have the air at 60 because I didn't want the pipes to freeze. And here's the thing. It's actually worse than this. It's not just gritty, which we've talked about before. You will not believe this. CEO of Texas Gas Company is giddy on a call with shareholders over profits this week from the storm. This week is like hitting the jackpot with some of these incredible prices. We were able to sell at a super premium prices for a material amount of production. Texas Freeze allows Jerry Jones, natural gas company, to quote, hit jackpot.
All right. Why is it so quiet with the Cowboys this offseason?
As many as 4 million Texans have had no power during the historic winter weather experienced by the state this week. As of Wednesday night, 7 million in the state had water issues with either boil notices or no water at all. Fingers are pointing, pipes are bursting, homes are flooding, grocery store shelves are emptying, gas pumps are drying, nerves are fraying. Chief Financial Officer Ronald Burns said on an earnings call Wednesday via Bloomberg, frankly, we were able to sell at super premium prices for a material amount of production. So not only is it working as intended, because when you allow companies to do things for profit over everything else, the fact that you were suffering and desperate to heat your home was a profit opportunity for them. So you could have the government and leftism like we do, up here. And now in Pennsylvania, I covered this before, but I'm gonna explain it to you again. What happens if somebody in Pennsylvania can't afford their heating bill? You know what we do? We don't charge you $20,000 all of a sudden. We do the opposite. We have a program, and it's a national program. But here it is. Here's the Pennsylvania version of LIHEAP. The Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program helps families living on low incomes pay their heating bills in the form of a cash grant. Households in immediate danger of becoming without heat can also qualify for crisis grants. The cash grant is a one-time payment sent directly to the utility company/fuel provider to be credited on your bill. The grants range from $200 to $1,000 based on household size, income, and fuel type. Remember, this is a grant and does not have to be repaid. So when Pennsylvanians freeze, we pay their bill and save their lives because it's worth more than $200. In Texas, they say, fuck your water pipes bursting. Fuck you. You owe us $10,000. And Jerry Jones and the rich oil and gas companies say, we hit the jackpot. That's what Ted Cruz and these Texans believe. And no one else is suffering that way. In Oklahoma, where it's colder, they have no problems at all. Texas, this is your problem that your conservative politicians created for you. This is what conservatism leads to. This is what right-wing economics leads to. Are you enjoying it? How does it feel? Are you pissed yet? Are you going to do something about it? Or are you going to let this rat cuck you? Hey, maybe you don't have any fucking pride. I don't know what it's going to take. How much evidence do you need that they're fucking you over and laughing all the way to the bank?
It never happens again in the state of Texas.
To what extent? Now, Texas is very unique in that there's no federal control authority over their energy grid. It's separate and apart, which for a lot of different reasons is very good for Texas. As you do not have to abide by the burdensome regulations of the federal government. Very smart on Texas's part, and I think that's brilliant. Well,
the Texas Panhandle is fine because it's federally regulated. Yep. The part of Texas that's in the Western Interconnected Grid, they're fine. There are 3 grids in America. The Eastern Interconnected Grid, that's what Oklahoma's in. They're fine. There is the Western Interconnected Grid. That's what the Texas Panhandle is in. They're fine. The third grid, the ERCOT Texas grid, that's where all the suffering is. And all the places north of Texas that have the same climate as Texas, but colder, is fine. Their pipes aren't bursting. Their utility bills aren't going up. The Tennessee Valley Authority, federally owned producer of electricity in the Deep South, no problem at all. No, rates are the same. Total reliability. Man, I guess that government can do things after all.
I'm not really sure.
This story has it all. It's like a case study of why capitalism sucks. This is a complete and utter refutation of everything about what right-wingers believe. Now, right-wingers will be like, well, what about California? They deregulated. They went in the Texas model. They had Enron. That's why California had power problems and power generation problems, because they went right wing. They went neoliberal. Not like they were, not the FDR New Deal style of left, where they build dams and they build power plants and they build electrical grids and they employ people at high wages. That's the real left. You're thinking of the Clinton left, which is really just Republicanism rebranded, not the actual left.
I thought we learned during COVID that teleschool, telemedicine, teleworking, Zoom calls, all this other stuff changed the way we do everything. Now, I'm not assuming that the people...
What a Weaselly little rat fuck. Imagine liking these. Imagine being a Sean Hannity viewer. How debased and pathetic are you? You can't you can't repair an electrical cable remotely, you scum. You can't deliver food remotely, you piece of shit. You can't feed people, you loser. In order for you, that's why they're essential workers. Your job you can do remotely because you're useless. You're a propagandist and a liar. You don't even educate. Any single kindergarten teacher in America does more good than Sean Hannity has ever done his entire career. His entire career has been lying and destructive. And look at this. Look at this, smug. Amazing. You like this, Republicans. This is your boy. That's a masculine Republican man. Is there a single Republican man that could defend this little twerp? Anyone. Anyone. I'm begging you. Let's have a debate. Grab catastrophe, thank you.
With all the natural resources of Texas, why is Texas relying on wind turbines, which, by the way, it's use it or lose it. You can't store that energy.
Texas is relying on natural gas. And their lines froze. You know who else has natural gas power plants? Here, we have Pennsylvania. We also have a lot of natural gas. We do fracking up here, too. You know how my power didn't even flicker when I got 45 inches of snow? It didn't even flicker. I've streamed every single day during that entire blizzard. It's like you guys didn't even know that outside I had snow coming up to my chest at the door. And you didn't even notice a flicker. And we have plenty of wind turbines up here. You pathetic losers froze because you allowed capitalists to cheap out, even though the federal regulators wrote in a report 10 years ago, had they had the power, Texas would not have had any of this problem. No problem. It would have just been a fun winter wonderland, a once-in-a-decade opportunity to play in snow. Instead, your homes are destroyed with pipes bursting. You're running out of water. Your people are freezing to death and died from carbon monoxide poisoning. All that was avoided had you not been conservative right-wing ideologues.
And why, in that sense, isn't it upgraded to what works now? Now,
also, by the way, windmills, you can store energy. Energy storage is a technology we have. Leaving aside batteries, we have pumped energy storage. We have, there's flywheels. There's a million technologies that you can develop in order to store energy. And if you had a robust Green New Deal with large investments in energy storage like Bernie Sanders and AOC are suggesting, even if the wind didn't blow or the sun didn't shine, which they do in the winter, you could store that energy. Also, I want to explain something for people that are stupid, who don't know this, but windmills are giant wings on sticks. And when the air is colder, it is denser, and denser air does more work. So the same speed wind on a cold day has more force behind it than wind on a hot day. So windmills actually work better in cold weather. They're more aerodynamically efficient in colder weather. In fact, solar panels do well in cold weather. If the same thing about if the sun's degree, the sun's waves degree of incidence with the solar panel is the same, a colder day or a snowy day will do better for a panel because they get more incidental shine from snow. White snow reflects light. So if you have a panel and it's surrounded by a snow field, it'll have a higher energy output than the same panel surrounded by, say, urban or other color sources around it. This is just basic physics. So you're stupid and you're actually factually wrong. And what's going on in Texas is entirely right-wing caused and right-wing And you're all bearing the brunt of the effects of right-wing ideology. And there is no argument. That's the facts. You can't weasel away from it. No matter how much you want to make this about AOC. Because she's hot and won't fuck you.
If it works and Texas chooses that, I'm an all the above guy. But for now, oil, gas, and coal are our main sources of energy, and nuclear energy, if people would let us use it.
Well, I think you said it right.
Yeah, Texas is blocking people from using nuclear and coal energy. I mean, this is right wing. This is the right wing brain poison that they listen to, and they believe it.
Should use all of the above. In Texas, Texas is the #1 producer of wind energy in the country, more than California. About 25% of our electricity comes from wind, and that's a valuable asset. My view is we ought to be using all the energy sources, but we shouldn't have mandates. We shouldn't be subsidizing any. We should let the market decide and the consumer.
That's why it has existed Texas. The market decided, because Texas is a flat. I don't know if you know this, chat, but Texas sucks. It's a flat desert wasteland with very little in the way of hills or elevation. So it's pretty much optimal for things like windmills. You have these empty plains with no trees, no obstructions, and wind can blow. So it's great for windmills, and windmills outperform the energy produced by windmill is cheaper than that produced by natural gas, even in Texas. And the reason why we need to subsidize renewable energy, in case you don't know, is global climate change is real. And we have to get off fossil fuels in order to save the planet from catastrophic damage. You know this Arctic vortex that went down to Texas, why it's so cold? That could be understood as an effect of climate change. It's not just warming everywhere all the time. It causes changes in our weather systems, which may result in a colder Europe. By the way, by the shutdown of the North Atlantic Conveyor, a channel that circulates warm air from the equatorial region up to the northern Atlantic, that results in Europe being warmer than it otherwise would be when the Gulf Stream blows over that North Atlantic Conveyor. This is all, I know, Mike, you're talking about facts again. Can you start talking about feelings again? I'm used to watching Ben Shapiro. I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Decide. Right now, we don't have clear answers as to why the Texas energy grid couldn't handle this surge in the winter. Obviously, a massive surge like this is very
That is
unusual.
not what happened. It wasn't a massive surge. It wasn't a massive surge. Thanks, Colin. What's up, buddy? 19 months. It wasn't a massive surge. It was a loss in productive capacity when the natural gas and coal plants and nuclear plants froze because they were not properly winterized.
In Texas. It appears there were a combination of factors. One factor is a substantial number of the wind turbines froze and ceased producing energy. Now, elsewhere, other colder climates, you're able to put treatments and lubricants on wind turbines so they can operate in the cold. But in Texas, that wasn't predicted to happen, and so they didn't do that. We saw
false. It absolutely was predicted, but it was predicted by those federal regulators back in 2011. And we don't need no government regulations. We don't need to be part of that East Coast interconnection or the West Coast interconnection. We're Tejas. We don't need to follow the rules and the regulations the Fed government puts in. We're going to go our own way.
a huge drop.
No one in your chat watches Ben Shapiro. Most of them have been banned already. I know, but we're going to post it on YouTube, and I hope as many conservatives as possible watch it because their tiny brains and pencil dicks can't handle reality.
Wind. We also saw substantial drop-offs from coal, substantial drop-offs from natural gas, substantial drop-offs from solar. What we need to do is have a serious fact-based investigation, not based on politics, not based on the Green New Deal and where you are on this policy or the other. It needs to be based on the evidence, based on the facts to say what happened. Why was the grid not there? Most of these shutdowns were mandated because there wasn't the power, and so they just shut whole neighborhoods down. You know, we had Tuesday night, we had a bunch of kids at our house because our house was one of the few houses that had power. And so we had a lot of our daughter's friends were over. We were making dinner for them. Boom, the lights go out and we lose power. And so we had a candlelight dinner because that's all we had. We had flashlights, and then the girls all camped out. They got in sleeping bags and wrapped up in comforters and everything. But it got cold. I mean, it was in the 30s in the house as it got cold. And it stayed with no power for 2 days. That was because the power generation in the grid couldn't meet the demands. And so they took whole streets and whole neighborhoods.
Incorrect. The natural gas plants froze and the pressure in natural gas pipelines decreased due to the freezing. So they were incapable of producing the energy because they were not winterized, because no one had regulated and forced them to spend the money to winterize the grid and harden it against possible winter events like this. Because they weren't forced to do it, they tried to save money by cutting corners, and then when a cold snap happened, they were incapable of actually producing the energy. It wasn't like the grid is at maximum producing capacity right now. It's not. It was mandatory shutdowns because they didn't have proper natural gas pressure. That's what happened. He's lying to you about what happened.
Offline.
And which is the same as what happened in 2011, which is why there was a federal regulatory report about how to protect the grid.
That should not happen again. It certainly shouldn't happen.
But are you going to stop being shitty on Texans in your community? I'm not shitting on Texans. I'm giving you tough love about your state. I love you. I'm trying to help you. Let me help you. What, do you think I'm going to talk about things without knowing how they work?
In Texas, other states, you look at a state like California, where they have rolling brownouts predictably year after year after year. It's a failure of the system, and it's a failure the government regulators are causing. Part of the reasons Texans are so pissed is this shouldn't happen in Texas. And I'll tell you this, we're going to fix it. The state of Texas better fix it. Governor Abbott was right when he called on the state legislature to investigate.
Imagine blaming regulators for shit that he caused. Imagine blaming regulators for shit that they have caused. The free market. Pathetic.
Why the grid wasn't ready and to make sure this never happens again in the state of Texas.
Yeah, I didn't see much criticism there early lid that Joe Biden put on things, while the people in Texas, you could use federal help. But there's always that double standard. You made the right call coming back. You also can be a father. There's also something called technology. We also know what teleworking is. And I think there's a lot of sanctimony and politics being played in this attack. And look, Governor Perry made me an honorary Texan. That's why I made the call to you and Governor Abbott. I feel a responsibility for Americans that actually don't hate me, like the state I'm living in, New York. Anyway, welcome home, Senator.
Hey, why haven't you moved to Texas? Move down to Austin. Sean, go make that move. Why are you up here in New York, man? Why are you in Gotham where all the socialists are? Why aren't you down there in Austin right now? The liberal media is fawning over AOC and Beto stepping up to help Texas, but won't show the Republicans. Where are the stories of conservative politicians helping out? Pathetic shit. I think we agree. I'm saying that I've seen takes along and say, God, good Texas suck anyway. Yeah. Okay, let me just say this. I am not trying to gloat over the pain that Texans are feeling. I really am not. Okay? What I'm telling you is Texas brought this on themselves. Now, I'm not saying that Texans, they're everyday regular people. They're good regular. Texans are good fucking. They're not any different than Pennsylvanians. Okay? You have a different history. But the reason why you're suffering right now is politics. And the politics that's been allowed to fester within that state. And a lot of people think that politics isn't relevant to them. Anyone in Texas ever going to believe that Texas isn't politics isn't relevant to your life anymore? Anytime someone says, I don't give a shit about politics, who cares? Doesn't affect me. They should remember this day and this past week. The reason why you suffered and your house had its pipes burst and you were freezing your ass off and everything was shut down for a piddly 4 inches of snow was because of your politics. The politics that you let get out of hand. And so a bunch of grifters and corporate ghouls profited from your pain. Eat some Scrapple with Pennsylvania Dutch. As long as your Scrapple has maple syrup on it, I'm in. I don't want no savory Scrapple, okay? Hillary Clinton tweet about Ted Cruz. Oh no. Don't vote for anyone you wouldn't trust with your dog. Oh shit. Oh shit. All right, chat.
With millions of Texans enduring their third.
That is my Ted Cruz rant. We covered a lot of ground in the Ted Cruz rant. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you feel empowered. I hope you feel empowered. If you want more leftists on this platform and other platforms that actually go into deep dives about issues like finance and electoral politics, you're never gonna find a better stream than this one. Here's some things you can do. I'm posted YouTube content constantly. We had another Jimmy Dore video. We had a not safe for stream debate with conservatives where Vosh and I and Denims debated with a bunch of conservatives about voter fraud. You have the dumbass takes of uniting with fascists. Get in there. Get in there.